welcome to another episode of True Buddhism for Today. So tonight I'm really happy to have a guest by the name of Laurie Homan, and she is an artist and an author of the book entitled The Journey Within, A Child's Memoir. And Laurie has been practicing Buddhism for some time now, True Buddhism for some time now, and tonight she's going to share her experience of how she started, and she has quite a few things to say about this practice. So thanks so much for being on our show, Laurie. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. I first actually found Buddhism shortly after I had been disabled. I was disabled from multiple sclerosis in 1994. I lasted 4 years with the disease. I was in a wheelchair and I kept working, but the multiple sclerosis ended up putting me in a wheelchair, and I struggled with it. It was difficult because I'd been an athlete my entire life, and now I was facing this crisis, and it's difficult. I went to church. I was raised in a Methodist church, but I hadn't found a true peace in my life at all. And a friend of mine had said, "Why don't you come try my Buddhist practice?" And she said, "We have a women's meeting, and come to the meeting. It's out in a wonderful park." So I thought, okay, I'll try it. And I actually went in my wheelchair, and at that point I had gone from a regular wheelchair that you push to one that was motorized. And I showed up at this meeting, and all the women came up and put their hand on my shoulder and smiled and said, "We're so glad you're here. And if you try this Buddhism, you'll be out of that wheelchair. Just give it a try." So it was a little bit difficult to really believe, but I thought, well, it doesn't hurt to try. So I began going to different meetings and trying to chant the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I just started with that and would go to the meetings and chant that. And I began to learn the process of receiving the Gohonzon. And I actually received it on August 24th in 2005. Which
I was just going to ask you, okay, it's 2005.
And what I found interesting too was that I went to my very first meeting. It was a women's festival for Women's Day, and I received my Gohonzon on Men's Day, the anniversary where President Ikeda received his Gohonzon.
Oh, that's right.
And as a Buddhist, when I received the Gohonzon, to receive it on that date was just so wonderful. And I decided that I needed to try to practice it sincerely. And I focused mainly on one of the things that we say every day. We do the liturgy of the Lotus Sutra. And in that liturgy, we repeat one thing 3 times. And it's a short, at the end of the first passage. And it begins with Shoi Shoho, Nyoze So, Nyoze Sho, Nyoze Tai, Nyoze Riki, Nyoze Sa, Nyoze In, Nyoze En, Nyoze Ka, Nyoze Hon, Nyoze Honma Kukyo To, which translates to, this reality consists of the appearance, nature, entity, power, influence, inherent cause, relation, latent effect, manifest effect, and their consistency from beginning to end.
And this is from the Lotus Sutra. This is from the Hoban chapter of the Lotus Sutra, right? The means chapter.
That is correct.
Means, yeah.
And I was looking for something that was an absolute truth. And I found that in the mystic law. And that reality became my reality.
So in true Buddhism, we have a saying that winter always turns to spring. And so, Laura, I'd like to ask you, for your life, how has winter turned to spring for you? You know, metaphor. This is a metaphor, but just in your life, we're practicing true Buddhism. How has springtime appeared in your life?
Well, just joining this practice, what I found is that in the darkest times, when I no longer could walk and do the things that I was used to doing, and I began to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, my life began to change in small areas, and things like a book came to me in the mail.
What kind of book?
It was a book on diet, and my uncle sent it to me, and it really made the biggest difference in my life. I realized that there were certain things that I could eat that would be beneficial to my body and things that were not.
Was that book specifically for multiple sclerosis, for MS?
It is called The Golden Cure, the Gold Coast Cure.
Okay.
And that was my first benefit that I received from the Buddhist practice.
And as I was explaining a few weeks ago, this is an example of a conspicuous benefit. You need something, it comes to you immediately by chanting. You weren't probably chanting specifically for that, but it came to you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing, because I was told in the very first meetings that I went to that this is a practice that you can ask for proof. You can demand proof. And that's how I took it. I said, okay, show me that this is true. They said I could walk again, show me. And I began to get these little benefits, such as that book, and then actually reading it and putting that into practice and taking the time each and every day to say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and to be able to manifest even inconspicuous benefits. I had spent 46 years in New Jersey. I'd been a police officer there.
Yes.
I had lived my entire life in New Jersey, and yet, especially when you're asking about spring after winter, I had been, like I said, in New Jersey, and within 3 years of receiving my Gohonzon, I ended up traveling the entire country, and I am now here in California. So, talk about changing your life and going from winter into spring. My entire life has changed.
Right.
And it has been more of a benefit each and every day. And I know that that is a true benefit, and that is not something that will ever change. Spring will always follow winter. I mean, that's an absolute truth.
It's great to hear that. I keep having to tell myself that as well, you know. But I can really feel your passion and your conviction in this practice. It's just so solid, and I know that you've received. Maybe could you've putting it in terms of like conspicuous and inconspicuous benefits. So conspicuous benefits were, you've received. I mean, could you maybe talk a little about your conspicuous benefits and inconspicuous benefits, or something that's happened recently, or from chanting?
Well, sometimes you don't realize what's the inconspicuous and the conspicuous benefits. You don't always know. I had an occasion this past week where I was doing a little painting on my mobile home, and I had taken a little fall. And you would think that that's not a benefit at all, and yet it ended up being a benefit because I didn't get hurt whatsoever. And I was able at that point to take a break and to take care of myself. And that is the power of the mystic law for things like that. When benefits come and tragedy comes, there's always a benefit to it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but every time there's been a negative thing, I've always had something positive come from that.
And so did you feel you were protected then?
Always I feel protected.
And we were talking about that a few weeks ago, the protection of the mystic law and from chanting. I did talk about that, the protection you can receive from chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It's really quite profound, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And it's hard to get people to believe it until you try it.
Exactly.
It's like a diet. You can read all the books about dieting, but unless you actually do it, you don't see the benefits of it. But I have yet to find someone who has not chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, honestly, even if it's only once or twice, that has not received the benefit.
That's great to hear. So as I mentioned earlier, Laurie is an author and of the book entitled The Journey Within, a Child's Memoir. And maybe you could talk for a few minutes about that.
Okay, the story is actually the voice of the child I was. My abuse started, my grandfather was the abuser, and it started when I was 5 years old, and he attacked pretty much all of the kids in the family. And because of that abuse, sexual abuse within a family is a very distressing and crippling event. And from that time, I struggled in life. I had struggled with trusting men, trusting people. I never knew who I was safe with and who I wasn't. I also found myself unable to be strong. And one of the things that I was able to do when I began chanting was I could feel the light within my heart turn on. I could feel the peace come into my mind. I could stop all the voices that were telling me how wrong I was, how bad I was, that I was no good because I learned at such a young age that I was worth nothing. And now I feel so inspired by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I can go out and talk about being an incest survivor. I can share the journey that I took. And that's what the book was about. And in fact, I don't think I would have ever got it published if I had not become a Buddhist and taken the travels. I did not get that book published in New Jersey, even though I spent 46 years there, and I wrote most of it there. It was once I received the Gohanzen and began traveling, and I came to Arizona in 2010, that I was able to get it published and to begin sharing that. And this practice has done so much in completing the healing. I did the therapy. It's necessary that you do whatever for your inner child, for your psyche. But it wasn't enough to heal me completely. It took the practice to complete the healing. And that is from Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I know for some people it's going to sound crazy. How can something like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo do anything? But the process, once you start saying it, will transform your life.
And do you feel that you've healed then at the deepest level?
At the deepest level. I realized that there are different worlds that we live in. One of the things that I learned from this practice is that there are 10 worlds. And I know that maybe we'll get into all the different worlds on another day. But one of the worlds I had always been in was the world of victimhood. And I was in the car and just thinking about how I always chose to be in that world of victimhood, even though I'm a survivor now. So I'm sitting in the car listening. I just turned the music on and I'm listening to it, and on came a song, and it was all about love the one you're with. And I'm thinking, well, I've had relationships. That's not the answer I'm looking for. And then I realized that love the one you're with. I'm with myself. It's time for me to start loving myself. So even though that sounds silly, what an experience it was. Because I know, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, that each and every moment is an experience that can awaken something to you. So as I'm sitting in that car wondering, why do I choose victimhood? I hear this song that says, love the one you're with. I have to love who I am. I'm with me. And so that's how this mystic law works for me. And it comes up in every single position I am in life. Whatever I do, it comes up and shows me how perfect the law it is, that you create your reality. You live the law.
The law of Myoho Renge Kyo.
Yes.
Which translates into the law of
cause and effect.
Yeah. And you were saying earlier something about appreciation?
Appreciation of all the people in our lives, our parents, our family, our teachers, our mentors. We have a great mentor in our President Ikeda.
Yes.
And the mentors that were his, President Toda and President Wakaguchi.
Yes, yes.
You know, and I've had different mentors in my life. We all have people. And that's one of the good things about this practice, which is why I want to meet as many members as I can, and also propagate, which is sharing this practice, because we all deserve to be happy. And if I can share that, what more could I ask for?
Wow. Thank you so much.
I've
learned a lot tonight. Wow, you're really a precious member of the SGI, and I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you for taking the time to come on the show, and I can feel your sincerity and your passion, and it's just really, thank you so much.
Thank you.